The Spanish Army is the terrestrial army of the Spanish armed forces responsible for land-based military operations. It is one of the oldest active armies, dating back to the late 15th century. The Spanish army has existed continuously since the reign of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. The oldest and largest of the three services, its mission was the defense of peninsular Spain, the Balearic Islands, the Canary Islands, Melilla, Ceuta and the Spanish Islands and rocks off the northern coast of Africa. During the 16th century, Habsburg Spain saw steady growth in its military power. The Italian Wars resulted in an ultimate Spanish victory and hegemony in northern Italy by expelling the French. During the war, the Spanish army transformed its organization and tactics, evolving from a primarily pike and halberd-wielding force into the first pike and shot formation of arquebusiers and pikemen. During the 16th century, this formation evolved into the tercio infantry formation. Backed by the financial resources drawn from the Americas, Spain fought wars against its enemies, such as the long-running Dutch Revolt, in which 17,000 people died. The 30 Years' War drew in Spain alongside most other European states. Spain entered the conflict with a strong position, but the ongoing fighting gradually eroded her advantages. First Dutch, then Swedish innovations had made the tercio more vulnerable, having less flexibility and firepower than its more modern equivalents. Nevertheless, Spanish armies continued to win major battles and sieges throughout this period across large swathes of Europe. French entry into the war in 1635 put additional pressure on Spain, with the French victory at the Battle of Rocroi in 1643 being a major boost for the French. By the signing of the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, Spain was forced to accept the independence of the Dutch Republic. Spain remained an important naval and military power, depending on critical sea lanes stretching from Spain through the Caribbean and South America, and westwards towards Manila and the Far East. The army was reorganized on the French model, and in 1704 the old tercios were transformed into regiments. The first modern military school was created in Segovia in 1764. Finally, in 1768 King Charles III sanctioned the royal ordinances for the regime, discipline, subordination, and service in his armies, which were in force until 1978. In the late 18th century, Bourbon-ruled Spain had an alliance with Bourbon-ruled France and therefore did not have to fear a land war. Its only serious enemy was Britain, which had a powerful royal navy. Spain, therefore, concentrated its resources on its navy. When the French Revolution overthrew the Bourbons, a land war with France became a danger which the king tried to avoid. In Spanish army, the officer corps was selected primarily on the basis of royal patronage, rather than merit. About a third of the junior officers had been promoted from the ranks, and they did have talent, but they had few opportunities for promotion or leadership. The rank and file were poorly trained peasants. Elite units included foreign regiments of Irishmen, Italians, Swiss, and Walloons, in addition to elite artillery and engineering units. In combat, small units fought well, but their old-fashioned tactics were hard to use against the French Grande Army. Despite repeated desperate efforts at last-minute reform, in 1808, Napoleon tried to depose Carlos IV of Spain and install his brother Joseph Bonaparte on the Spanish throne, sparking the Peninsular War. Initially, there was little resistance and Spain was occupied. Soon, however, Spanish units began to reorganize and set up guerrilla warfare, culminating in a Spanish victory at the Battle of Balaine within the first 2 months of the war. The defeated French evacuated the peninsula all the way to the Ebro Valley near the Pyrenees, suffering many humiliating defeats against the regular Spanish army. They were among the first sound defeats of the hitherto seemingly unbeatable Imperial French army, forcing Napoleon to intervene personally with massive forces. But also sparked the War of the Fifth Coalition, as other European powers, led by Austria, were encouraged to declare war on France. The situation steadily worsened for the French, although Napoleon brought more effective troops into the peninsula. As the guerrilla insurgents increasingly took control of Spain's battle against Napoleon and created a more or less unified underground national resistance, for which traditional armies of the time were not organized or prepared for yet. By 1812, however, the army controlled only scattered enclaves, and could only harass the French with occasional raids. Fortunately for the Spanish, the disastrous French invasion of Russia severely weakened the French army and forced Napoleon to cut troop concentrations in Spain, ultimately allowing the army, militia and their British allies to drive the French